Hey, what's going on, everyone? Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye here, and I'm going to review the Sony A6300 today, and it's going to be a little different. It might be a little bit of a montage with music and a little bit of vloggy in there because I really wanted to go out and shoot this. So I went out to New York City and I went to the streets. I had a little SJ cam or like GoPro lookalike mounted to my shoulder. I was supposed to have a head strap, but the post office lost it, so I never got that. So I improvised that with my capture clip just to give you a perspective of someone actually shooting with this thing. And having some fun with it. So everything you're going to see, real results. I'm going to cover the video, a little bit of the focusing and how fast and whatever that was. And then also the video speeds. You know, you get 4K video, you get 1080p at 120 frames and 60 frames per second. So you get a lot of things out of it. And I'll clearly label everything I did with this, that way you know what is what. But the vlog stuff you'll see me do around New York and in some of the parks, it was shot at 4K, sampled down to 1080p. So there will be a lot of quality in that. So let's just have some fun. Let's go check it out. Let's check out real live examples and stills, and I'll do my best to cut everything up. And then after everything, I'm going to send it back here and we'll give final thoughts. Hey, what's up, everyone? Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye here. And as you can tell, I'm in New York City having some fun. I'm not going to do a boring review of the Sony A6300, which is filming me right now, hopefully in focus, so you can test that out. I'm using the Rode Video Mic Pro, so hopefully that does well in this, well, loud city. And we're just going to take some photos. I brought along my GoPro, well, my SJ cam, and I'm just going to kind of change these reviews up, do something a little bit more interesting, take some architecture photos and buildings and some street stuff, and test the video stuff. Any of the specs and everything, look down in the description below, but we're gonna have some fun with this. So let's make this like a vloggy montage thing. Let's check out the A6300. Off the back, like I was saying, especially my unboxing review, it definitely feels way more reliable, stable to hold than the 6000 was, just because it's a better camera. You're like $500–600 difference, all depending on where you get it. So it's definitely worth the quality difference if you're looking for that. But in everything else, the dynamic range we're gonna look at, it looks pretty phenomenal for some of the tests that I've taken. But the video, I'm gonna be looking forward to seeing that in a little while when I go down to like Central Park and Times Square. So we'll check it out. Let's just walk around the city, take some photos. So I gotta say, a lot of my first impressions so far, as I was just going around a while, this thing, I mean, I've tested this in you know, regular autofocusing mode, continuous mode. And continuous mode, I'm getting like a hit rate almost like 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. That was one of the biggest things with the A6000, was that the autofocusing wasn't, it's great, but it wasn't that great, and it would miss a lot, especially when you're going, you know, forward and back, and that's one of the biggest things you're looking for with autofocus continuum. So I just noticed with the 6300, it's actually pretty good, and it's worth investing in. And when they say they have, what is it, 465, 495 autofocusing points that can, you know, help out to be 0.5 of a second, it shows. One of the cool things that I wanted to look for, and I heard a lot of great things, is the silent mode on this camera. I saw a Jason Lanier video where he just said it's basically non-existent. There's no sound. And from what I noticed, I'm pretty much just gonna shoot on this all the time. There's a silent mode, it's either on or off, there's no other. And I'll even show you a video I did with my SJ cam real quick, to where I press it, you don't hear a thing. It still makes the autofocusing beep. I'm sure you could turn that off, but besides that, it's extremely silent. You can go right up to next to someone, they won't even know that you're there.
So this camera is definitely nothing to frown about. It's $1,000, 24 megapixels, and it has amazing dynamic range. Too bad it wasn't as sunny as it was earlier. I didn't get to film and get out a lot to shoot this kind of stuff for this, but it's this is well worth looking into. It's a phenomenal camera. It's fast, it's sharp, it's clear. I mean, the depth that you can get with it as well, and even though it's an APS-C sensor, you still get a lot out of it, and that's what they say. This is like the A7S Mark II or the A7R Mark II. You get a lot of it. The autofocusing, as I said, is very fast. With continuous autofocusing, it's a great combo. You know, so only a few days into owning this camera, but one of the big questions I got asked on my unboxing video is this worth upgrading from the Sony A6000? It's a very valid question. It's a $500 difference. But I was mentioning, if you need better video, if you need a mic input, which is what I have right here, it sucks that there's no touchscreen for the video on the back, on the articulating screen, or a headphone jack to monitor the audio. But just off the back, this is phenomenal. I mean, it's right outside Sony. It's like Sonyception. So I think both cameras serves a purpose for different people. I don't necessarily know if it's an upgrade, but I'm going to cover that in a separate video. But for something like this, it's hard to not recommend this camera. And I'm not just saying it because I bought it. If I didn't like it, I'd return it. It's $1,000. So let's just keep messing around with it and seeing what else we can get. So like you're seeing this in 4K right now. Well, it's downscaled down to 1080p. I'm shooting in 4K. So some of the stuff I'm going to go into now is about the video aspects of it. And once again, I'm just getting into it myself. But from what I hear, 4K video, 24 frames a second. There really is not necessarily a heating issue like some of the other Sonys have had. From what I saw, it will get warm after like 23 minutes and you'll see a temperature gauge, but it like doesn't shut off. So I'm gonna test that as well. I'll tell you my thoughts on that. But I'm also gonna test the slow-mo. You get 1080p at 120 frames per second. That's insane, and 60. So I'm gonna test both because I heard the 1080 at 120 frames isn't the clearest, isn't the best. So I might wait till night to get a more extreme example, but we'll see as that comes along. Let's test out some video. One video thing I did want to mention is that the camera does get warm. It does get a little bit hot. Once again, after about 23, 24 minutes, you'll see that little orange temperature gauge saying that's getting warm. You just turn it off, you turn it back on, you're absolutely fine. But it does get a little warm, even just pressing it once. I've done this on 4K and 1080, and it just does get a little bit of warm. Like I'm feeling it is a little warm right now, but it's not going to shut off. We're about 2000 ISO right now, walking through Central Park. It's getting darker, so we're really going to be able to test the low light capabilities of this camera a little bit. But we're still looking to do little bit more video work, or at least start some. There looks to be a little bit of motion right over there, so let's keep walking on. Let's head back to the studio, wrap it up, and just give some of my final thoughts and checklists and get everything a little bit organized. So hopefully I can help you out and you learned as much as you can about the camera as I did.
I felt my experience with the Sony A6300 was well worth the price of admission. Mind you, once again, this is $1,000 body only. I think it's like $1,150 or $1,200 with the kit lens. I think I mentioned that in the video. But overall, my experience was great. It worked exactly as I needed. And using the Sony A6000 and now using the 6300, it's very similar. You can customize. There's function buttons. That way you could set things the way you need and change things around. So the versatility and the functionality is actually great. And I don't know, it's very easy to use, it's lightweight, it's one of the mirrorless cameras, so that's great. You get a little bit more out of the APS-C size sensor, so you get a little bit more on the lenses that you're using. And everything that you saw, be it or not, you think it's crap or not, it's not, is the kit lens, the 16-50. So you could get great things out of just a kit lens. Mind you, what you can get out of the Sony G-Line or whatever you want to hook up to this bad boy, you could get it. And I will, once again, vouch for the focus. The focus is like that. But I think I may have mentioned in the video as well, it kind of have a similar issue like the A6000. It did have a miss rate. And I think I said maybe it hit out 7 out of 10 times. But, you know, it was as it was coming closer, as it was a little bit further away, it would track the subject very well. I did a lot of this using autofocus continuous and holding it down and following. But then all of a sudden, as it got closer to the camera or something like this, it really did start to lose focus and just really go towards the background. So I felt as the subject was closer to you, it didn't do a good job because testing left and right movement isn't the best way to test autofocus and continuous. It's a way to test it, but I felt that was accurate left and right, but always the hard part is going to and from the lens, and I felt that it did an okay job, not that really impressive in all honesty, but 11 frames per second, spectacular, very fast. I put this thing on silent shooting mode as you saw in the video, and I don't think I'm ever taking it off. That and between continuous low, you can do whatever you want with it and no one will hear a freaking thing. So that's great. Video is great, very easy to use. A great combo that I used is the A6300 with the Mi Photo Day Tripper, and you could just have a lot of fun with that thing around any kind of city or wherever you're shooting, and it doesn't take up a lot of real estate in your bag. And I did write down some cons throughout the day, and let me just kind of say, and it's once again, it does come down to the atrocious battery life. I had 3 batteries with this, and I spent a day and a half in New York, and the first day I went in, I had to recharge 2 batteries twice, and I wasn't even shooting for more than 5 or 6 hours, and I was doing a lot of video stuff. So keep that in mind if you're doing a lot of video stuff, just like anything, because it's always using the monitor or your screen, it's going to chew up the battery like crazy. So DSLRs still have a huge battery upgrade, and I hate the argument that you have to have like 18 batteries to shoot with Sonys. You shouldn't have to buy that many, but mind you, it's almost the same thing as the A6000, but maybe goes a little bit quicker because of the 4K video it's doing and the amount of heat that it produces when it's doing that. And that's also one thing with the video. As soon as you hit record, if you're on 4K, the camera got a little warm. You do get a little bit of a warning. Some of that's getting hot as you're around like 23 minutes of straight shooting, but I never had any issues with it at all. I did want to address that the 1080p, which I just saw, this isn't a con. The 1080p at 120 frames per second wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought it was actually good. It stacked up well to the 60 frames per second while using, HD definition video. So it will give you a little bit of a crop in there as you're using that, but it actually did well. There was this dance skate scene in New York in Central Park that I found, and I felt that that would work out well to prove the point. There's no touchscreen in the in-body stabilization, which would have been fantastic if maybe they charged $100 more. They could have done something like that. But for the video especially, if you could just tap the focus on that back screen, I really wish. But the 6300 is a fantastic camera. It's worth the money. It's fast. Its dynamic range is great. The picture quality is great. The ease of use is easy. I love using the, and I've changed my view on this, I love using the tilt screen kind of up in the streets. So that way I don't really have to be paying attention ahead. I don't draw a lot of attention. And you can just go around and just have the screen out and just use it like that. So it's fast. If you're going to follow any of my social media stuff, you'll see a lot of the stuff that I had in this video. Look down below. My social media links are there. You'll see things from the A6300 that I reviewed and shot in the city all over the place. Probably a lot on Instagram. I'll tag it with the A6300 so you know it's that when it's that as well. But overall, it's a great camera. It's going to be one of the best sellers of 2016. It's at a higher price point than I wanted, but it's at a great price point for what it offers. And I just felt that it could use a couple more things that they left out. But a lot of the things, and even just having the 4K at 24, real 4K at 24 frames is phenomenal. But the 1080p at 120 and 60 frames is actually really cool looking. So the one thing before I close out the video, high ISO. What did I think of that? For a crop sensor camera, it does pretty decent. It almost kind of performs the same way as the A6000. For personal taste, I felt it should have handled high ISO a little more, and I took it in a really extreme situation with a violinist. I think she was a violinist in Central Park as well, and it was really dark. And I tried to take some photos of a wedding couple in a darker situation. I think I was at like 6,000 or 8,000 ISO, and I get that that's really pushing it, but Sony's been pushing that their higher ISOs are really great, and I just felt that it didn't perform well in a more extreme type of environment. And I guess I don't know what I was looking for exactly, but it didn't do as well as I thought. But high ISO, I'd say video-wise, maybe up till like 3,000-ish, if not a little less. I think you're fine. Photo-wise, less than 4,000, 3,000 ISO. And that's just from what I did. As I go a lot more, but my initial reviews are the high ISO wasn't that great in lower light situations. And maybe, obviously with flash and everything, it'll work well. I was able to use that with my Yongnuo flash and my Nikon, and it worked well. And that was one of the big things I'll break off about Yongnuo later in a video, but it worked well with those third-party flashes as well. I'm going to talk about the Sony A6300 a lot more because I know a lot of people have questions about this camera, as it will probably be one of the best sellers of 2016, no doubt. So any questions or comments about anything, please leave those down below. I will answer everything that you guys and girls ask, because it's a hard thing to justify a $400 or $500 6000 going to the 6300 and spending an extra, that extra $500, $600. So once again, I will have a video on upgrading, and should you upgrade from that very soon as well. Once I do, that link will be down there. If not, just follow, stay tuned. As I said, subscribe for more videos. But the 6300, just wow.